Welcome to Discovery Watch with John Kaiser.
I'm your host, Jim Goddard. Best of the season, John.
Best of the season to you and our audience too, Jim.
John, last week Nevada Exploration published another update for its South Grass Valley project, but the stock has since weakened. Is hope fading for a discovery this year?
I believe hope is fading among some investors for a barn burner discovery hole this year. But such hopes for an initial blind drilling program of this nature were always misguided. When they started drilling in October, nobody had any idea what the bedrock would look like in that valley all covered by gravel. The biggest fear was it would look just like Goodwin Butte, an outcropping lower plate carbonate block in the northwest part of the area where there was that golden groundwater anomaly, or the lower plate rocks that outcrop at the southern end where Kennecott drilled holes in the past, and the rocks aren't particularly interesting looking. So the big fear was that they drill through this gravel and come up with similar stuff, and then the groundwater anomaly is a mystery, and well, what do we do next? So in terms of success, what they have delivered is astonishing, and it is starting to be recognized on a much broader basis. The first hole, of course, was a pretty dismal start. It went right into a Jurassic-aged granite, and that's not going to host a Carlin-type gold system, so they stopped that and moved to the northern fence of this three-fence, 2.5 kilometer by 2 kilometer corridor that they've outlined in South Grass Valley. And hole 2 and hole 3 in the middle fence, both of those hit what the company was looking for. And when they published the assays, it confirmed that, yes, this is a hydrothermal system pumped by Carlin-type fluids, has all the Pathfinder elements in it, and yes, there is a sort of 10 to 20 ppb background gold level, which says, yes, this is the whole works. Where now is the part where the gold managed to concentrate? And of course, when you're dealing with such a large blind area, and you can, park a dozen Cortez Hill footprints inside this area in all kinds of different configurations, elongated pipe-like body. You can twist and turn it anyway in 3D space, and it's very easy for a drill to intersect something like that unless you're lucky. So the whole strategy right from the start was we need to set up a database of holes that allow us to understand the stratigraphy, see what's going on, study the zonation of the Pathfinder elements in the rock, and gradually vector in towards targets. And one of the observations that the company has made, based on the high degree of Pathfinder elements that they have found in all the holes for which assays have been reported so far, there are likely multiple deposit zones within this northwest-southeast trending corridor. So last week, they gave us the results for hole number 4. And hole number 4 was in the right corner of the southern fence. And a bit of bad luck happened with that one because they didn't hit the bedrock until about 377 meters depth. And they pushed it down to about 600 meters. And they finally reported assays last week, and the assays were an improvement. We saw the gold grade spike over 50 ppbs, more than a half dozen times, typically associated with some sort of cross-cutting local fault structure, and the Pathfinder elements were also very elevated, and the company even pointed out that the system seems to be strengthening in the southern direction relative to the northern direction. And they had also spotted hole 5, which was about 500 meters to the west of hole number 4 on the southern fence, and they provided a visual description of this, and it appears to be even busier than hole number 4. They have not really, they've described the rock types as being different from what they've observed in holes 2, 3, and 4. And they're not quite sure if this is a result of a higher alteration intensity. They're waiting for the geochemical assays, not just for the pathfinders, but all the other elements that they then can use to log this stratigraphy and understand which formations are we dealing here. It's obvious that it continues to be lower plate carbonate rocks, and based on some of the descriptions in there, they did not mention realgar, which is the arsenic sulfide, and orpiment, which is what the realgar oxidizes into. The first is an orange color, the second is a yellow color. And Wade Hodges has said, yeah, if we were to see visible realgar and or orpiment, we would mention that in a news release, and we wouldn't tell you about it either, because although it's not a necessary condition for ore grade mineralization to be present, it can be a sufficient reason, and because the arsenic, although it will travel farther in the hydrothermal system than the gold will, when the conditions are right for gold to drop out and form a high-grade Carlin type deposit, arsenic also likes to drop out in great abundance. So when they see that, they get very excited. So far, they have not mentioned it, so we can assume that they have not seen this indicator. So the news release also said that we are drilling our 6 holes 600 meters northwest of hole number 2. And, in that same news release, they said, well, everything seems to be getting better at the southern end. And so I really scratched my head. So why would you move the drill, almost 3 kilometers to the northwest, park it really close to Goodwin Butte, which has that sort of rock that you dreaded finding in your holes, in your drilling campaign? Why would you do that? And the simple answer is, well, they did not have hole 4 assays yet when they made the decision to move in that direction. And they might have, parked the drill closer to that southern end. But right now, one of the key things missing at the southern end is the hole number 4, which didn't hit bedrock until 377 meters, compared to hole number 5 to the west, which hit it at 158 meters. Clearly, there is a post-mineral fault that has downdropped the lower plate carbonate stratigraphy. And now their vectoring question for them is, okay, do the gold grades and the pathfinders improve towards the west where it is shallower, or will they improve to the east where it is deeper? And so they really don't want to spend money in that area until they get the assays for hole number 5. And they've got their fingers crossed that they get the, better gold PPB in that hole, telling them that we need to start vectoring in the shallower part of this system. And that hole was only shipped out last week, and given that it's the holiday season, it normally takes at least 3 weeks to get assay turnaround, we won't be seeing any results until sometime in January. So, but why go all the way to the northwest and drill in that area? And the reason is that hole number 2 had pretty good numbers, and they were sort of puzzled by the geophysics in that immediate area to the northwest. And also they're now starting to see that although their original grid was laid out in a north-south pattern, they're now seeing a sort of northwest-southeast trending corridor within which this hydrothermal system has moved. And in that area of Goodwin Butte, there is a gravity low. And a gravity low can be caused by a couple of things. One is that the bedrock is less dense, which will happen when it's been rotted out by intense circulation of hydrothermal fluids. But another can be that the bedrock's a lot deeper, so what you're measuring with your gravity is the less dense gravel, sand, and cobbles that lie above it. And when McEwen, about 3 or 4 years ago, drilled at that target in North Grass Valley. That was what turned out to be the case. The gravity low was caused not by circulating fluids decalcifying the carbonates and that, but it was simply a down-dropped block of rock. So that was a bad outcome for this one. In this case, last week in the news release, they said that they had intersected bedrock at 158 meters, and I thought at first this was a typo because that was the same depth that the hole number 5 intersected bedrock, but it is just one of those strange coincidences. They had indicated that the drilling crew wanted to, quit by December 18th and head home for the holidays and return in the new year. And so one expected the program to be shut down today. And hole number 6 is a bit of a risky hole because it is so close to Goodwin Butte. And I suspect that if they were intersecting unpromising-looking rock like Goodwin Butte itself, they would not drill this to the target depth of 600 meters. But I've heard that the crew is going to spend a couple more days pushing the hole deeper, which I haven't heard that there's been any drilling problems or anything like that. So I suspect that this interesting hydrothermal busyness that we're seeing in these lower plate rocks is also present 600 meters to the northwest of hole number 2. And this hole, when it's finished, it'll be shipped, maybe later this week, but probably won't be looked at until the start of the new year. And the company is thinking along the lines of, well, let's get the results of all these holes, these remaining 2 holes, do the proper logging with the geochem assays, put it all together, and then start thinking, okay, now where do we start spearfishing, going for the sniper kill shots to try and home in on a deposit that the market can recognize as a discovery. So maybe we'll have a discovery hole in either one of these 2. The company isn't saying anything about hole number 6, and when you see them clam up and extend the drilling beyond what the drillers wanted to do, that's possibly a good sign. With Carlin-type systems, you can never tell how much gold is in it until you actually get the assays. And even when there's Realgar and Orpimont present, you just really don't know. So fingers crossed. But why is the stock weakening? All of this is relatively good news. Well, the problem is that this drilling campaign was funded by a private placement of 16 million units at 12.5 cents in August. And this private placement comes free trading at the end of this month. Probably nobody will be in a position to sell until the start of the new year, which means there could be about 5 to 8 million shares coming into the market because these investors took a substantial risk when they put up that money, because the stock would be at a nickel if that drill program delivered a whole bunch of upper plate rocks, or even worse, younger volcanics, or just completely unaltered lower plate carbonates, telling you that wherever this groundwater anomaly is coming from, it's not coming from our target area. So the whole market's been dreadful for the past 2 months. Everything has trended down. So anybody who took a big risk and has been rewarded by the confirmation that here is a previously unrecognized lower plate carbonate window in northern Nevada that has been pumped by Carlin-type fluids, that has a substantial footprint, that could host multiple Carlin-type deposits of high grade. This is a huge accomplishment, but where's the meat? Where's the gold assay? So there's a likelihood that some of these investors will want to take the money and run, which could, for everybody else who has been watching this, waiting for confirmation, could end up being an excellent opportunity to get a stake in what will probably be one of the most important discovery exploration plays in 2019. And the story is starting to get recognition. The company at the start of this month, early December, was at the AEMA conference in Spokane. It alternates between Reno and Spokane each early December, and it is a very technical conference. It's mainly geologists and that type which are present at this show, and it was a pretty tame affair this year because we are back into a pretty serious resource sector bear market. But the company got a lot of action at its booth where they had core from South Grass Valley on display, and these are Nevada geologists. This conference specializes in the geology of the western United States. So you had all these experts there, and they're all and the sort of attitude was, wow, your fantasy story about chasing these golden haystacks as a result of these gold and groundwater anomalies, it finally seems to be paying off. However, you would think, okay, now the stock should be trending up as word gets around the geological community, but the reality is geologists don't really have a lot of money, and these days people upstairs aren't listening to their geologists. They're cutting programs and dealing with fires because all the stocks are all down pretty badly. The resource sector, whether you're in like productive commodities such as copper or in more sort of alternative asset categories such as gold, it's been a miserable year. It's been like a canary in a coal mine. Everything selling off, expecting terrible things to happen in the new year. And for plays like Nevada Exploration Inc. coming up with an unrecognized, off-trend, lower plate carbonate window that's very juicy, this stock would be rocking and rolling in a different type of market. And perhaps that will come in the new year. If we do get a gold uptrend going, gold's behaving well as the general market falters. If we get a gold uptrend going, maybe the audiences will return back to this space. But for right now, this is a story for discovery exploration audiences.
We'll have more with John Kaiser right after the break.
I'm Kelly Jennings, CEO of PowerBand Solutions. PowerBand is a cloud-based provider of auction, inventory, and finance solutions that make buying, selling, and financing vehicles more efficient. PowerBand Solutions trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol PBX and on the OTCQB symbol PWWPF and on Frankfurt symbol 1ZV. For more information, please visit us at powerbandsolutions.com.
Grand Portage Resources recently completed the 2018 drill program on its 100% controlled Herbert Gold Discovery property located in the prolific Juneau Belt in southeast Alaska. Drill results are expected through late 2018. Past drill results included numerous multi-ounce gold assays on multiple veins. Grand Portage trading symbols are GPG on the TSX Venture, GPTRF on the OTCQB, and GPB on Frankfurt. For more information, please visit our website, grandportage.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with John Kaiser. John, what other attention-grabbing exploration plays are underway right now?
The one that I'm watching very closely is West Haven Ventures, which we talked about in October when they reported the results for the Shovel Nose project in southern British Columbia in the so-called Spence's Bridge Gold Belt. It is an area where you're looking for low sulfidation epithermal gold-silver vein systems. The hunt has been on for more than a decade in this area without much luck. But West Haven, which is headed by Sean Pollard and Gareth Thomas, finally had a breakthrough this year. That started in March when they had the first intersection that showed they were coming up with something different in the south zone, which they had recognized late last year. One of the key people driving this exploration strategy is Peter Fischel, who has experience with the Kupol gold deposit in Siberia that was originally owned by Bema and then now Kinross, and he started to recognize certain similarities. And the company has had two analogs as sort of target models for the Shovel Nose exploration strategy. One is the Hishikari deposit in Japan, which is actually over 100, 300 to 400 meter, very high grade, 1 to 2 ounce veins within this 3-kilometer corridor that's sort of 500 to 1,000 meters wide. The other is the Kupol, and now they are starting to think more of the Kupol, because the Kupol is this one massive 5-kilometer long vein, and it's not this high grade, but if you have 12 million tons of half-ounce gold, that's a pretty substantial system. So they now think that based on the sort of distinct alteration envelope that Kupol exhibits, and which Peter Fischel started to see as they were exploring earlier in this year, they think they have something like this on their hands. So in early November, from warrant exercises, they had enough money to mount a 2,500-meter drill program. And the key discovery holes were number 12, 14, and 15. And strung together, they established a strike of about 300 meters for in sort of a southwest dipping, southeast striking vein system. And the current program, the plan was to start drilling down dip on holes 14 and 15 to start getting a vertical extent, try and get a 300-meter vertical extent, and then step to the southeast 100 and 200 meters. And normally with these vein things, you do these little tiny 25-meter step-outs. They want to establish that this is indeed a big Kupol-type system. Back during the Metals Investor Forum conference early in November, they were already being besieged by people wanting to give them money. They have been reluctant to finance without having a better understanding of this system. Last week they put out a news release showing the results of an Aeromag survey they had done. These veins apparently track with linear mag low anomalies, and so they wanted to have a better understanding of how extensive, how many of these veins could be on this project. And that caused the stock to spurt up a little, but it's quieted down again. My attempts to reach management, I've left messages, have not had anything returned. That tells me that we may be close to a news release that probably isn't going to be a negative one. So yes, West Haven Ventures Shovel Nose project, this is definitely a play to watch out for. The footprint that their current program is targeting, if it's like 500 meters by 300 meters depth by 20 meter thickness, and a 2.7 specific gravity, that's an 8 million ton target. So if gold comes in at around 500,000 ounce within this footprint, you're talking a 3 to 4 million ounce high grade discovery. And right now one might say, well, the $100 million valuation for West Ventures, it's a bit of ahead of itself. But if they start demonstrating that this vein has continuity in terms of both the vein itself and the gold grade, then we have one hell of a discovery on our hands.
We'll have more with John Kaiser right after this.
Vatic Ventures Corp. is a potash exploration company focused on the Korat Basin in Thailand, the world's largest undeveloped potash resource. Vatic's management has extensive potash exploration and development experience in Thailand. Vatic will have marketing advantage compared to Western producers. Drill program commences this spring. Vatic trades on the TSX Venture, symbol VCV, and on Frankfurt, symbol V8V2. Visit our website, vaticventures.com.
I'm Douglas Mason, CEO of Naturally Splendid, symbol NSP on the TSX Venture Exchange. Naturally Splendid is a biotechnology and consumer products company focused on the global cannabis and health markets. Naturally Splendid is expanding distribution in this rapidly growing market with products currently in Canada, the USA, South Korea, Germany, and Australia. To view our comprehensive company presentation and for more information, please visit our website at naturallysplendid.com.
Welcome back. We're chatting with John Kaiser. John, you've just made an important change at Kaiser Research Online. How does your new rating system work, and how will it affect Discovery Watch?
Well, Jim, the problem I've had in the past few years that I've had this two-tier pricing system, the Spec Value Hunter system, and then the general full access Kaiser Research Online, which included bottom fish type recommendations. And I also was in this trap of classifying companies as buy, sell, hold type of companies, and it's been a pretty miserable year this year in terms of stocks doing anything really interesting on the upside, unless you were fortunate to be watching ones like Great Bear Resources or West Haven Ventures, and it was always impossible to predict that they would finally come up with something different than what was already known about these projects. So I decided I'm going to consolidate it all under one package, one membership package that gives people access to everything. And there's a sort of a crowd that likes to just use my search engine to search for stuff and make their own decisions. But then there's another crowd that likes to just listen to my ideas and follow them and wants me to write more details about them. And then I've had Discovery Watch in the background, sort of talking about things that I happened to notice that were interesting, but that I wasn't really talking about in Kaiser Research Online. Well, what I've now developed is a new rating system where I assign spec value ratings to all the companies. And it starts off with everything unrated. And some companies like Producers I'm not going to bother rating because they're actually fundamental value companies, not spec value. Speculative value, it applies when you're dealing with an exploration venture where the outcome is not certain. So you can't really crunch numbers and say, okay, this 10 million ounce deposit being mined at 300,000 ounces a year with this profit margin has this definitive value unless something changes about the fundamentals of this mine. In exploration, it is all about possibilities. And there's like 1,400 resource companies on the TSX Venture and CSE that are still involved in the resource sector, and I've got another 500 that are listed on the Australian Stock Exchange. So in my work, I waste a lot of time discovering companies are duds. My strategy for developing picks is not to wait for somebody to buy me dinner and fill my ears with all their wonderful story. It's actually to try and track down interesting speculative value by doing the research. So this new system I have allows me to classify companies as zombie spec value, which is companies that are screwed up. They have negative working capital or they've been abandoned by management and just have some token people still doing the filings. And these companies are ones where existing shareholders are probably not going to make a lot of money. So when I flag these, I tag them as zombies. Then when people use my search engine, they'll know not to waste time on zombie type companies. But zombie companies are extremely cheap. Sometimes there are assets inside them. Sometimes the company gets revived, rescued without all kinds of horrible things being done to the existing shareholders. So for very sophisticated investors, zombie stocks could be something to do your homework in. Then I have a new category called no speculative value, which is what I'm reserving for companies where the projects seem useless, the management doesn't seem serious, that they do ambulance chasing. There is no real possibility for speculators to make a ton of money because some big discovery comes along. So, once I've wasted time recognizing that this is one of these companies, I can just tag them as that and don't have to worry very much about them. Then there is my concept of fair, good, and poor speculative value. And fair speculative value does not mean fair as in mediocre. It means fair as in balanced, where the upside potential, if everything the company is trying to accomplish is successful, matches the downside risk in case they do not succeed in their goal. And so when something is ranked as a fair speculative value, that means there's something going on which, if it all works out, the company could do very, very well. Poor speculative value is a company that could also continue to do well, but the risk-reward is unbalanced. The reward is already pretty much embedded in the stock price. And this will happen when a discovery enters S-curve. And it doesn't mean the stock can't go higher. It just means that one is exposed to greater downside risk. And good speculative value is when you can crunch the numbers and see what the story is. You can then say, the market is mispricing the potential. The market's pricing is biased towards the negative outcome. So these are stocks that will rapidly adjust to a higher value once the market understands that, this is the story. This is what this is all about. And one thing that this resource sector market does suffer is an inefficient market. The audience has dissipated. People really don't know how to think about stocks, so there are plenty of opportunities for good speculative value. But what everybody's been waiting for is bottom fish spec value. And bottom fish spec value is assigned to those companies where the management is sincere about trying to create real wealth for their investors, not in terms of like pumping the stock up so that they can beat the other shareholders and dumping it and taking the money and running, but in demonstrating fundamental value. And these are companies where, if they get an exploration play going, they will always have plan B ready for the failure that is going to be the more likely outcome when you're doing a discovery style exploration. So I've already gone through the whole list. I've assigned all the bottom fish spec value and a few fair spec value, and I've reduced the price for my service from $800 in one shot or $1,000 in quarterly installment to for people who are already registered in the system, $350 until the end of the year, and after that it's $450 for a year for people who wish to use this service. And this is going to mesh much better with Discovery Watch, because as I go through these companies and assign the bottom fish value and become familiar with what they are happening, just because it's a bottom fish value doesn't mean it's something that I'm recommending as a buy. It is something that I'm watching. And bottom fish value is for companies where there's some missing piece. Something is missing. Maybe promotional talent, maybe a permit to get something going. Maybe it's a replacement project where the management is good, but they haven't yet unveiled what the plan B is. So these are companies that the market prices very low because there isn't a story that's actively being told, as there is with companies that deserve a poor, fair, or good spec value rating. And at the end of this year, on January 1st, I'll unveil my short list of favorites among companies I've ranked as good, fair, or bottom fish spec value. And from the whole group, I will be in a much better position to talk about plays that are happening that are of interest to the Discovery Watch audience. Everything will be twinned. Obviously, I'll be writing about things to my readers before, so that I'm fully on top of whatever the story is I want to talk about in Discovery Watch. But we're going to be really focused on discovery exploration heading into the new year. I am optimistic that the gold price will trend higher if we get a general market bloodbath in the new year. Can't count on that. So it's all about who can deliver a discovery such as Nevada Exploration Inc. In Nevada, or something that's already unfolding like Shovel Nose for West Haven Ventures. And as a sort of obvious what's going to be one of my favorites in my list, I might as well tell the Discovery Watch companies it's Scandium International Mining Corp. That's such an obvious one. I'm not really spilling any secrets. That company is set to finally flourish in 2019 after spending 2018 base building the future offtake market.
John, thank you so much for the update.
You're welcome, Jim.
Best of the season for you and your family.
And you too. Thank you.
We've been talking with John Kaiser, his website, kaiserresearch.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on Discovery Watch are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at HowStreet.com. Discovery Watch is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.